demonstration of kind of communications for a large Indian tribe, including the newspaper, including all press releases, including you know, relationships with media. And so Rob has a lot of experience in this field, and I'll let him take off.
It just does.
So that we're pretty comfortable in here.
So I usually go through my bio and then what the job is, a couple of stories, take questions, but you taping me?
Yeah.
You make me famous? Okay, I won't. Did you see the video of that teacher in California?
Yeah.
Doing the math thing?
Yep.
I couldn't watch it, I was embarrassed.
Right.
I thought that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Did somebody find a video of you?
No, it was a trigonometry teacher in high school, and she was trying to teach a complicated order of operations, and she had a word that represented each of the steps, you know, first letter, I forget what that's called, but she Minua Koa, something weird like that. And so she brought in a fake headdress and did a fake Indian chant. Ugga, ugga, mugga, mugga. With a tomahawk chop, so they would remember this chant, and the indigenous kid videotaped it. And she put on leave. And my God. So I'm like, I don't know, what will I do in my career? Since it's did you have anything you wanted me to talk about or steer it toward or cover? I mean, I can engineer it.
What we did, we brought in a superintendent of schools, Mark Johnston.
Okay.
We brought in a administrator of a bank, Jamie Burr. And now I usually go through the order, and now we're at a communications or media or newspaper type administrator. And that's usually you.
You ever had a miscommunication with the family?
All the time.
It just happens a lot, don't it?
Yeah.
Like, so we're gonna go this and then see at 3 and, you know, get there. And then it's like, oh no, we changed it. Well, no one told me. But we're all set up and we had a special surprise and we brought in, you know, yeah, but we're at Phyllis's now. Well, I call it the swirl. Now take that and multiply it by 100. And you can see the potential for so many circles spinning out of control and just getting complicated. And that's just talking internal, within an organization, inside a circle, and the many circles within, trying to navigate. Now add to that the outside world, media, other agencies, other governments, and they have official consultations of government to government. They have groups seeking partnership with us. You have people struggling to find our front door. Just like, well, I just called the number on the internet and I got sent to transportation, and then they sent me to, it just, those stories just fascinate me. I've been doing this job for 16 years, and I always think about Wayne Newton, you know who that is. Don Cachet. You ever see Ferris Bueller? You know when he jumps up on the flatbed and he's singing the weird Christmas song? That was sung by Wayne Newton, who's been a famous Vegas singer. He was in several movies playing himself, but he's beloved because he's part Native. And he talks about his Native roots, and so he bought a place in Rawlins back in 2007 or 8. And he decided, he told his wife, probably this is his 5th wife, he wanted to come meet and thank the tribes for allowing him to live here. It was the right thing to do. So he doesn't know up from down. He knows he's on the reservation because he's seen the border signs. First building he sees is Housing Authority. So he pulls in the housing authority, goes up to the front, and he's accustomed to always being recognized. And he goes to the front desk, and there's a girl up there typing behind the window. He goes, "Hi, I'm Wayne Newton. I'd like to talk to a leader, and thank them for letting me live here." "Okay. Who should I talk to?" Looks up, I'm like, "Well, maybe you should try the People Center, it's down the road." So he goes to the People Center, he tells me this later. You know, he's talking to his wife, and he's wearing like a $1,200 overcoat, Pendleton, and he's got these knee-high muckluck boots with real seal fur. It's like November. And he's in this expensive Land Rover, and I guess he pulled up the People Center, and they went in, and got the same kind of, you want a what? Well, did you try the council building? So what's the council building? And Marie Terosian wasn't director then, but Lucy Vanderbilt was. And Marie heard this and looked up, and she sees Wayne Newton. She just saw him in Vegas like a month earlier. And she said, I screamed and I ran toward him, like, "Oh, Wayne Newton, I love you." And he gives her a big hug, you know. He's like, "Yeah, I believe you're here. What are you doing here?" And he explains everything. And she goes, "Oh, go down 2 miles, just see this big building, pull in the parking lot, go on the one flagpoles." And she called ahead, and so Bud Moran was chair then, and they greeted him, and they had him sit in council chambers, and several people came in and took pictures, and he gave his little talk to our top leaders, you know. So thank you so much. It's an honor to know you, and wanted to feel my welcome for letting me live here, and this and that. And I was just thinking that someone of that stature can't find our front door. What about the regular schmo? Just, who wants to deal with us? You know, how are we set up? We're, you know, they always joke about small towns, because the Elmo building, Elmo Hall, is green now, but it used to be pink. And so I still have people, when I get your directions, go, "Oh yeah, go by the pink building, but now it's green." You know, that's small town directions. Go by the Johnson barn. It's not there anymore, it burned down 10 years ago, but go. So fast forward from that 15 years to, geez, it was Thursday, it was a week ago. I should have brought a couple. Every year I print something called the annual report.
I can bring it up.
It is the, I think they posted, I gave it to Crystal and then they posted. Nope, they haven't got the new one up yet, but it was the old one. I had 800 copies printed, and it's also digitally available. It's a snapshot of every department. And if someone didn't know anything about us, they could pick it up, flip through it. What does DHRD stand for? What do they do? It's got kind of mission, vision, update of the past year, what they do in every department. And each department can put as much as they want or as little as they want. NRD usually has 3 chapters. Health is a pretty healthy one. Some get carried away, like economic development. They're very proud. We have 14 projects and we got 14 goals. We want to tell you all about them. And then police are like, we protect the public, 2 sentences.
So it's up here, guys.
Get the gist. That's the old one. New one just came out. It's got Buffalo on the cover. And council and whatnot. So the new ones just got printed and delivered, a little late, behind schedule. COVID's still causing an impact. The company that printed it has a delivery man they use who's delivered to the reservation dozens of times. So they told him, deliver to Rob McDonald, CSKT Communications, here's a P.O. box number. Driver's about 73, it's probably his final business, who knows what he did before. He calls me, I'm coming back from lunch, just look at a burger on my breath. So, and I can't really hear him very well, and he said he's driving around SKC. And I go, "What do you got?" And he reports, "Oh, they're done, they didn't tell me." Okay. You know, miscommunication. I say, "Come back over, you know, what do you see?" And he says, "Well, I see a building, I see a sign that says law enforcement. So you're on the west side of 93. No, I'm by the college, I'm by the gym. But you know, so okay, diagnosing here, he's bad at directions, he's freaked out, he's not making much sense. So I guide him on the phone, back to the light, to cross over, and I'll stand in front of the building by the flagpoles, he comes over. This just happened, and I said, hey, I need those reports in here, and he goes, great, do you have a dolly or something I can carry them with, because they're kinda heavy, and I go, dude, you leapfrogged over the mailroom and property and supply, you got the pencil pusher, I have no idea where a dolly is, but I can look. This guy short circuits, he's like, wait. He's like tapping his steering wheel, not quite pounding, he's tapping, going, wait, well, I'm gonna go to the mailroom. Like, all right, go. They're here, they're gonna get in, I don't care, you know, they're gonna get dealt with. He goes to the mailroom, Kurt Berlin runs the mailroom. Kurt is, up to here stress-wise because they're relocating the kicking horse in 3 days. They should be there now, they're transporting everything. So everything's in upheaval. They go over there, I don't know if you found Kurt or not, and I assume Kurt would say, well, here's a dolly, can you go unload them in that building? I don't know what happens, but I go up to my office, I'm talking to my boss or someone on council, and I can't get off the phone, and my phone's ringing, and it said I go to voicemail, I go to voicemail. I check it in 10 minutes, and it's Jablu downstairs in front. He goes, Rob, that delivery guy came here, and he said, well, I'm told I gotta deliver them here. Do you have a dolly? And he says, no, we don't have a dolly. Well, so Jablu goes, well, let me call Rob. Of course, I'm on the phone. Well, let me call Crystal Reese. Why he calls Crystal Reese, I don't know, but she sends out emails like I do. And Crystal says, oh, all deliveries should go to Property and Supply, which is in Kicking Horse. So Jablu goes, you should go to Kicking Horse. And this guy is off his blood pressure meds. He's already, he's like, what? I'm not going, He called me later and apologized, but he said, I only got 5 minutes per delivery. And when he told me that, I apologized, but I did lose it. And I got very emotional, and I stormed out of there. And somehow Alicia Lawrence works in accounting, intercepted this guy somewhere. I don't know. And asked him, how was your day? And he said, well, he explained that he needs a dolly to carry these things. And dropped my name, Rob McDonald won't get me one because he's a pencil pusher. And I'm like, well, I'll get drugged. I make one bad joke. And he said, but you shouldn't help me, honey. Got older sexist guy, you know, because it's too much for you. And she goes, hey, I drag elk out of the woods. I think I can help get you a dolly to do these things. So she goes into council, and they have this little push cart, and she takes the coffee pot off it and goes, here you go. And so I think she even helped him. So the time I get downstairs, Jablu is laughing, going, oh, that guy lost it. And then he, Alicia helped him, and then here they are right here. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put him on the cart and take him up in the elevator. Oh, the elevator's broken, there's a part missing, so we can't. What? So Jablu, I got nominated for something. He said, well, let me help you. These boxes are like 65 pounds.
He lifts though.
And he just grabbed one and threw it up his shoulder and hiked up the stairs really fast, and there's like 14 of them. I did like 4 of them, but killed me. So that happens, and I'm thinking the matter's done. And I called the company that hired them and explained, we had a colorful interaction with one of your contractors. Just be aware, maybe you should tell them better directions or run this in the future. We have someone who's a sergeant at arms, who's our bulldog, who's in charge of watching all the entrances, and he's very serious about his job. He's a former vice chair of council, BIA cop, and sometimes I think him and law enforcement disagree, because law enforcement look at him like, maybe you should simmer down, and he's like, simmer down, don't try to protect me. So he sent me an email that he started scrolling down, and it's like this long. And it details on an incident like this cannot happen without my knowledge. I must be informed of everything at every moment. When our employees are threatened with this sort of violence, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I go to Jablu, did you ever feel threatened? He goes, no, I was laughing at this guy. Okay. So there was no threat. No. you know, and I'm trying to talk to Jim going, so there's no threat? Yes, but I gotta know every entry point of, this was a delivery, and I told him, that's our door, come in here. So it was a known entry point, and he's off. Told me a story how he arrested a state patrol colonel one time. I put a gun to his neck and I said, buddy, you're not, I'm like, okay. This is all just, you know, 2 hours, an hour and a half of my day.
It is gone.
You know, I got stuff I really gotta do, and I'm just trying to, whoa, you know, keep this molehill small. No, this is not a council level issue, no. Let's not get the National Guard here, okay? So there is a management. How do you go about even beginning? If you got brought into an organization, like if they went, hey, we've been watching you at SKC, and we think you have many skills, we'd like you to be our communication officer. Can you start Monday? Sure. Oh my God, what do you do? How do you even start? I find the younger generation puts a tremendous amount of trust in technology, software, programs. And I do too. I was in a world before internet, I'm in the world with internet, and I use a lot of the tools. I'm comfortable with cell phone and everything, spreadsheets, the suite of Adobe and Microsoft. And I find young people go, I have this job to do where I need to track communication. I need to make sure information is passed efficiently to the people who need to know it. There must be a program that does that. I don't think there is. There are tools, yeah, there are tools, but I think strategy. I was in college, and the director of Washington's State Health and Human Services, which serves over 1 million people, has something like 40,000 employees, you know, a budget about the size of CSKT, 300 million, and has to cover every health, mental illness, addiction, just all the kind of baddies and difficulties, and is constantly in the news, has to lobby the legislature, has to curry public favor, and has to serve a population. And he draws these big circles. Public perception, legislative, you know, governmental perception. And we kind of went, perception? He goes, well, it's true, perception is reality, and what I do affects perception. And then he put a big circle next to it of expectation. You have to manage expectation, because people think, well, you heal people from addiction, so why aren't you doing that? Why is there still addiction? He said, you know, there can be an expectation that you just, addiction's over. Or it would be if you just did your job. And I hear that. I hear that in our government. I hear that from the public. If you just did your job, we wouldn't have this problem. Well, yes and no, but we have, like any large government and any active community, we have complex problems, and we have tons of people committed to solving these problems. And I often see a situation which I call the overmotivated, undereducated. And it's kind of like putting them in a room and saying, we need to fix X. Right, we all want to do that, right? And instead of going, okay, how do we do that? How do we organize, and what's the first step? In fact, what are the first 5 steps we should do? And agree upon that, and then we'll do those 5, and then we'll come up with 5 more. And even the most basic approach, they're just like, we should do something. What? I don't know, but do something. And they run around. You know, some are painting the walls, and some are building something in the corner, and some are yelling at each other, trying to convince you. You know, it's just like, okay, appreciate the enthusiasm and the energy, but what are you trying to do? We're trying to do something. Okay, and you ask a question that'll just put them in the headlight. What does success look like to you? What is success? I don't know. Well, that's probably the first question we should answer. What? And then when we know that, then we'll nudge everything toward that direction. And that can be very difficult because I think that's been abused, overused, misunderstood, and there are populations who are like, you're wasting our time. We're sitting here talking, and you're talking about strategies for weeks, and we're doing nothing, and people are dying. We gotta do something now. And I think you can kind of predict that there's gonna be a part of a group that'll be of that mindset. Council took a very active role on addiction about 10 years ago, and had everybody who was a stakeholder, who was passionate about the issue, come to a big meeting. You know, some were in formal groups, some were in citizen forum groups, some were employees, and they were all in their role, and everybody got a chance to kind of say their piece. And there was a guy who was non-tribal, very close friends with tribal folks, familiar with the community, and his belief system more aligned kind of with biker life. And so he was kind of like, police, rules, we don't need to worry about that. And there's Craig Couture in the corner.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, okay. And he's like, what we need to do is, we all know who the drug dealers are. We need to go out and get them, lock them into a house, chain them up, and say, you're not gonna be a drug dealer anymore. And part of the room's like, yeah, that's what we should do. And Craig Couture, I'm just sitting back waiting for, when's Craig gonna pipe in? When's Craig? You know, and Craig's very smart, so this guy kind of has his build up, his peak of his talk, his passion, you know, and explaining, and trying to convince everybody why he should be listened to. And then he kind of runs out of material, and he starts repeating himself, and he kind of winds down. And then Craig kind of moves out to the center. Well, very interesting ideas, Craig's. I agree to a lot of these sentiments. Okay, reality check. We do have certain rules we can't ignore, and we can't go about violating the law to achieve these goals. So he kind of put a boundary on that, you know, and the guy, so his crowd felt, but he was, you know, had his say. With this situation of these many people, these many passions, these many issues, apply gasoline. Imagine if any of them had an ability to communicate to a large group. And something like, oh, say, Facebook. And they're very active, and so they got 800 friends in the community. And I went to a meeting today, and I was appalled because they wouldn't support my idea. And these people are a joke. I can't believe it. You know, and I'm fed up. I'm forming my own group. And someone else may have posted, I went to a meeting today. I was so impressed, and it was inspiring. And I can't wait to go to another meeting. This is true progress in our community, and I look forward to, you know. So, what do you believe? What's to believe? What role could a government play? Should a government play? Should they even be part of all that? So all of this is all the little mini hurricanes swirling around. So luckily, let's back up. You get to the governmental structure, you get to the flow chart. So you're thinking, who are the most powerful people in our tribal government? Council. I work for the tribal government. I won't get into that yet. I always tell people I am not a decision maker. I kind of have my lane where I'm entrusted to make decisions, and I can't just, and I'm empowered to talk to the media on behalf of the tribal government at the, I'm hired to be the spokesperson for council, which means I work very closely with the chair, because the chair is a spokesperson for council. But the chair educates me, fills me in, and I help shape messages and go, you know, what does council want to say? We want to tell people we really care. Okay, then I help shape that message and then get approval and then share that. And I've developed channels to media. So over the years, it wasn't always easy, but where we are now is I have every TV station from Kalispell to Missoula keenly aware of what I do. radio stations that I believe are legitimate, all the newspapers, daily and weekly, and then other outlets that have shown interest, Great Falls, Helena, Billings, the radio outlets in between. Hot Springs had a weekly paper for a while. So I'm on the university newspapers, and individuals who provide content for them. So I have an ongoing updated relationship with all of those individuals who ask for information. Including the top of the heap is probably the Associated Press. Associated Press is a national news gathering organization. They have a bureau in every state, they have an office in every state that covers the state legislature, and they have their staffers are very skilled. And if you do a story and the Associated Press does the story, it tends to go statewide, guaranteed, if not national. So when the Associated Press shows interest in a story, it's like, ooh, our story's about to go big. We're about to get national, if not international coverage. City planner of Polson, Juan Escano. I was flexing a little bit. So I have these communication pipelines built up for the purpose of my job, of when council cleared his throat. We're very excited the water compact's been signed by the Interior Secretary. This now begins a whole new process of governance in the Mission Valley, which means this. That's the message that I get. When we were waiting for that moment, because the water compact you're familiar with, I have on my desk a document written in 2001, given to the state, which is about 14 pages, and it says, with this document, we wish to revive talks of the water compact in hopes of coming to a conclusion, and we want to do it on the basis of several premises. One premise is tribes own all the water. The state's response to that was, we can't talk like this. This will not be done. So that started, that was kind of the second startup of the water process, and that was 20 years ago. There was a build-up compact commission. There was a build-up to first round of legislature in 2013, which failed. There was a build-up in 2015, which was called the most controversial issue in the state, passed, and then it went to Congress, and it took 4 years of kind of behind-the-scenes work as the congressional teams were smelling it, vetting it, working with some of our high-level attorneys. We were putting on information to make sure the farmers and ranchers in the state were aware of what it really meant, and then there was a whole hired crew of professional communicators putting out all kinds of dirt, poison. The Indians are gonna take everything from white people. This means the tribe's gonna take over everything. It's amazing, the crazy theories. It's part of the UN conspiracy. It's part of socialism. They're gonna bring in radical Muslims to live with it. They're gonna terrorize farmers. And it's amazing what they put out. And while that is growing and brewing, we flexed a plan that we put into motion, council did in 1985, to purchase the dam, which we did. And we purchased it in 2015, and we renamed it SKQ. Dam, and operated that, and that, kind of took them. And then we had the bison range situation. We're trying to get the bison range going. Mickey Pablo, sometimes called our best chairman of all time, way back before I got here, said, my 3 biggest goals for our nation is to get the bison range restored to us, to get the dam purchased and operated, and to get the water compact signed. I didn't think I'd live in my lifetime to see all 3.
Yeah.
But on September 17th of this year, the Interior Secretary signed the water compact, enacting it, making it the law of the land that everybody on the reservation must follow. And I got to sit into a meeting of, what the Rotary Club is? There are many fraternal organizations that exist. You have the Chambers of Commerce, kind of business oriented. You got the Lions Club, which is kind of they're kind of old school, predominantly male, but more white, very untribal, and they kind of exist all over communities across the country, and they meet, and they organize, and they raise money, and they're a great hub of people. And if you put information into them, they're like, it's like putting honey on an anthill. They'll take a piece and take it back to their world. You know, the attorneys, the business owners, the influencers, the people with money, the people who think they have influence, they come to these groups. And we were asked to give a talk at the Rotary Club, which is another one. Now, the Rotary Club, I always struggle going there, because they're the stereotypically whitest organization I've ever dealt with. They sing songs before you have a meeting.
Yeah, which is weird.
It's just weird. They kind of sit around, a bunch of these old pasty guys going, "Oh, Bill, what you want to do? What? Let's sing the Grand Old Flag." Okay, and everybody all at once goes, "Hey, it's a fine flag, it's a grand flag." Like you forgot the words. And I'm there with Mary Price, who's a technician in the legal department, who's just a veteran on these issues. And I was kind of telling her that we should look up the words, the Grand Old Flag. And I go, "Hey, Tony, what are we going to sing?" I said, "Well, I saw a story about Oklahoma, and I sure loved that show tune, so let's sing Oklahoma." So they go, "Oklahoma, da 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 da." It's like, I was glad I was wearing a mask, because I was. Oh my God. It was all worth it to witness that group in the resort, called together by Dennis Duty, who was friendly to the compact. Dennis Duty did the Mission Bay property development in Polson, the kind of rich Duty place by the golf course. And full of influential folks, because the county always makes sure their road is plowed first. People notice that. I was there when Mary got to explain, this is now the law for everyone on the reservation. There will be a board formed. The board will be 2 members appointed by council, 2 members appointed by the governor, with the county commissioner suggesting people, and a 5th person chosen by those 4. And that board will have the ability and power to apply state law, federal law, tribal law, depending on the water right before them, making final decrees and decisions. Whoa. That really happened. And these guys, some paid attention, some didn't, but they're like confronted with this is done. Yes, President Trump signed it in December 2020, and then the Secretary of the Interior signed it in September this year. Hand goes up. I live on the lake, and I pull water from the lake to water my lawn. Are you saying that I now have to file that use with the state? And Mary, matter of factly, she's kind of dry, which is wonderful for this situation. She goes, "If you want that use protected and legal, you must tell the state or file with the state that use." And his face went from like very pale white to like beet red. Because probably since 1910, people have been here and taken what they want, and there's no way to slow them down. There's no effective governance to cover that much territory, that much place, and that guy was just told, those days are over. And the room just kind of, and I took a photo because I'm kind of watching the room, and I'm seeing hands creep up the chests. I'm seeing guys lean over, and then you see the hands on the face. And I got a picture of like 3 guys bent over going like this. So are you saying that?
I wish I would have been there.
There will be more of it, and there's a pushback, and the real estate companies that are, there's some that are very friendly to our viewpoints, and they kind of tell me what they're seeing, and we're getting, the crazies are doing all kinds of, they're saying, yeah, they will, but we're in a different point of, we're no longer trying to get it over the finish line. It's over the finish line now, it's about implementing and getting the word out on that. And tribal members have 5 years to file any uses that are not known, and we're developing a system through our legal team of how that'll be done. Non-tribal people have 6 months to file with the state, DNRC, and everybody got a letter, and so they're all freaking out. They don't know what to do. What does this mean? And they're throwing it out.
Well, I got the same letter, so I have questions. I don't know everything. But I'm tribal on fee land.
So am I.
Then I have a piece of trust land.
Yep. You,
We'll figure it
you've got the option to file with the state or the tribe, and we've got to present it kind of neutral like that, but the fact is, if you file with the state, your use date will be 1910,
And if I file with the tribe,
1855 or better.
you know where I'm filing.
So
My
it's,
tribe.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But you can't just go, no-brainer, you gotta put the option out and put the facts, you can't, go, you're stupid if you don't do this, you can't communicate like that. But in my family, that's what they wanna hear, just say it, you're stupid if you don't do this, I understand
Yeah.
that, well, I can't communicate that way.
Even though we want to sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of between the lines, I'm like, a well-informed travel member would do this.
Yeah.
Flipping moron. So, that's some broad overviews, some background on organizations and communication. Montana's the Wild West. There are things that don't exist here that exist in other places. I think there are probably fewer professional communicators here than there are in, say, Illinois or, Pennsylvania or something, or California, just because there's fewer people and the systems don't need it. They haven't, there's fewer newspapers here, which I find a problem because I think the media, since that's what I was trained in, is kind of the watchdog of government. So I wish media was in this meeting I was in with the county, because Mulman Pass Road by Kicking Horse, underneath it is a drainage for irrigation, and these are old roads and old bridges, and the state and feds, they keep eyes on all these things, and the underpass is starting to give out, which means the road on top is starting to sag a bit, and there's a weak spot. It's like, they act way before somebody crumbles into the earth, like in a movie or something. And so the state DOT tells the county, that's a county road, you better step up and take care of that. County ignores it. Lake County ignores it. The state calls a meeting and invites us there, Lieutenant Governor is there, and they kind of lean on the county going, we would like you to fix that road as soon as possible. And the county is confused because they're thinking, well, it's an irrigation, that's FIP, that's federal, and to them it's the same thing as tribal. And they're like, so we're not gonna fix a road that is damaged by the underlying structure, which is someone else's, that's all theirs now. And then Lieutenant Governor's saying, no, it's yours. And if you don't fix it, you might not get access to all this federal grant money that, is very valuable. And that's when the county commissioners, Dave Stipe, leans forward and goes, first off, last I heard, you can't tell us what to do. And Lieutenant Governor's like, that is true, but you don't get access to these funds. And he goes, second point, we don't use those funds. Our county and lake refuses to tap into the system where they're taxed, and then they put all this money in these grants for all the counties to compete for, to do bridges and roads and repairs. And our county's like, we're too good for that. We don't want the strings. So they're short of money all the time. Luckily, the county has a great outlet. They can go, you know why the roads are so bad, people? The tribes. That's why they're so bad. That's their communication strategy. So they can drum up resentment towards tribe. I can't tell you how many times I've been out in public and someone goes, oh, you got a flat tire? We'll tell the tribes. I'm like, why? Tell your dumbass commissioner to get the money that they can, but they're playing politics and whatnot. I wish the media could have been in that room to put a spotlight on that and explain the dynamic about the leadership, but the media is not strong enough to do that. They don't cover things to that degree, they don't have the money. It just isn't there. So, good news and bad news is that if you have a communications person, you have tremendous ability to influence what's in the paper. I can, at this point, literally put out any statements and they will run it, untouched. And they might do a story on it, echoing what I said with a little more information. County knows this too, because the county and Great Hertz, they will write guest opinions, which are just pure slanted political BS of only half the story. I'm like, oh, come on. And the paper's like, oh, thank you so much, because we're tired, we don't have enough people, so we'll fill the paper with that. And so when council's operating well, I can go to them and say, we really need to get this story out there. And I'm like, you're right, then we'll get something out there. I came here in 2006, and before I did this job, there was a woman named Gwen Langford, now Spencer, did it for a year, and she left after 6 months to go to Helena to work with her aunties and her mom, because Anna Sorrell's her aunt, and Anna was in the cabinet under Schweitzer, and so they had all these big issues coming, the dam, water, Buffalo, and they advertised, and I was in my 15th year working in newspapers up in Spokane. I was covering K through 12, daily reporters, like 5th newspaper, and they started having money problems. The Bon Marché decided we're no longer gonna buy a $250,000 contract of print ads, we're gonna spend all our money on internet ads. So the lifeblood of a newspaper is advertisement. So without that money, then the biggest cost is personnel, so they started, who's most expensive? So they shook off all the expensive people. Started coming after the mid-level people like I was, so it got uncomfortable, and it was like, maybe there's another life. This job came open and I applied, and I got here. And it was like a new position. It was like, well, what is this? There was a joke that would happen. I would go to a council, would have a meeting, on some issue, which not everybody is there. It's not broadcast. It's not ready for prime time. A lot of ifs and whats, and so I come to the meeting so I could be up on the issue in case I had to do something. And some council would look at me and go, shh, shh, Rob's here. I oversee the Charcusta, so like, well, and the joke was, if Rob hears it, he's gonna put it right in the paper. There's a couple councilmen I had to pull aside, although it's actually hurting. I know you're just joking, it's just teasing, but you know, you own the paper, nothing appears in that paper. I know none of you have gone there and said, don't run that, but you could, and the staff's aware of that. So can we stop the teasing? It just made it worse. So there was a meeting on gaming. I don't know if you remember, there used to be gaming on the reservation. You could buy lottery tickets, and I don't know if you know all the classes of gaming and how the federal gaming regulatory works. On a reservation within the exterior bounds, there are Class 3 gaming, which is like Vegas style, that is allowed in the state, can only occur if the tribe has an agreement or a compact with the state. So we had this compact with the state, but we didn't like it because once that compact was fired up, anybody could have a casino. So the pizza joint, the gas stations, there's 35 casinos and 2 tribal casinos. Is this our new Buffalo economic development? No, we're not making any money. And we're trying to fix that, and because of our history of 1910 and homesteading allotments, we got to deal with that, and we're different than the other reservations, and the state is not having a good conversation with us. So in 2006, we were discussing it at a table, and I remember the center of the table was a speakerphone where our gaming attorney, who doesn't work with us right now, was explaining the strategy of what we're going to do with this meeting. And I finally saw, like, 2 weeks in my job, I'm like, oh, no one has talked about perception, how this might play in the media, how we can, if we do this, we can probably leverage it better using the media as a tool, and so I said, well, can we talk the dynamic of public relations, of media perception on this and affecting the public view on this? Have you considered how this might affect And I remember I finished my question and the attorney like paused for 2 seconds on the phone and he went, "Who gives a shit?" And I was like, oh, I looked over at Jamie and Mel and she was like, gee. Well, we'll talk about that later. So when you introduce a new arrow to the quiver, it doesn't always get received as, what a cool new thing. It's a threat maybe to the existing order, and it takes time for, and, you know, and I was like, oh, I knew that was waiting. And so, okay, I have to prove the power of this new thing. So when council decided in 2006, we are going to walk away from negotiations, which means negotiations stop, and the compact is gonna run out in 2 months. So if the compact runs out, and there is no compact, overnight, all those gaming machines are illegal to even exist unplugged on the reservation. And everybody who was paying attention knows that. Half the casinos didn't believe it. So, I don't believe that. Don't believe it, doesn't exist. That's how they operate to their detriment. And so, we were gonna pull out, and I said, we should do a press release to the media, telling them that we plan to pull out of these discussions. And out of courtesy, I should inform the director of the Gaming Commission that we're talking with of this change. And I don't believe we've ever done that. I'm pretty sure no tribe's ever done this before. And she has no say to stop us or discourage it, but out of courtesy, that, and the chair at the time said yes. So I'll never forget calling her up. I think her name's Diane. Diane Robinson, met you so-and-so. Say, I need to inform you that our intention is to pull out of the talks, and I know you're aware of that, but we're putting a statement out today at 4 o'clock. And I want you to, and I got that far, and she went, "You're what? You could just hear her like a dog pulling on a leash, because she wanted to say, you can't do that. But in her mind, she's going, I can't stop them. There is no law, no teeth, no leverage I have to prevent that. And she kind of went, yeah, reeled it back in and said, thank you for informing me that. Absolutely, I'll send you a copy when we send it out to the general meeting. And I think that was a moment when we kind of put forward a different game. And I think it is, you know, we don't win every one, but we're at the table. And what I always preached to council is whatever agency puts out the press release first owns the news cycle that day. Because when you do that, you put forward a premise. Tribes Water Compact is the best thing for the community. And that premise is then carried by the media, if it's a good one, if it's strong, if it's in the ballpark. And then they go and get comment from all the other people. State, tribes say this is the best thing for them. What do you say to that? We would prefer to talk about this as, I know you would, the tribes say. So they have to respond to us. And that's a tremendous, powerful stance of having the lead. Because when you just sit back and you hope they don't bother you, if you don't communicate, some knucklehead from Whitefish is gonna put out something. Tribes are hiring radical Muslims. They're gonna shoot all the white women. The reporter calls up, says, Rob, we understand the tribe. That's complete nonsense. Well, that's what you say, but how do you respond to that? I'm not gonna respond, because that's, well, you know, that's the story. Tribes deny that they're hiring. You're rewarded by going out first, and I think that's where we started 15 years ago, and at this point, it's second nature. We've got those highways of communication built, so when our chair, Shelley Fyans, and Ali Bundy got very engaged with the Department of Justice on missing and murdered Indigenous women, and wanted to hold a press conference, which we Zoomed, and had officials from the region who then clamored to, I want to be part of that. So we had this growing list of dignitaries who wanted to jump on the success of this new relationship. And every media in the state responded. We had something like 27 media outlets. The Billings, Great Falls, Associated Press, the story went national, if not, I'm sure it appeared in Australia, Fuji. So, I remember telling that to Ellie, going, hey, that photo of you at the microphone, pretty sure that ran in Australia. So that's how far we've come from taking a stronger handle. Before that time, it was a kind of Wild West. I remember reading in the Charcusta, some rumor went out of control about SK Technologies. And one of my cousins was interim CEO, and she was quoted in the paper saying, if you print that we're doing business with a renegade Muslim country, you will be sorry. No, no, that's not. And then I heard stories that reporters would just call the general operator and they'd get secretaries of departments going, you heard what? No, that's not true. The fact is so-and-so quit because they would just gossip because, so you need to control what goes out formally as an organization. Gossip happens, that happens, but you can always, just say, well, people talk, because they're right, it's America. But the formal stance of our government is controlled and shaped by the top leadership. The top leadership taps their microphone, which we mean, and says, this is what we put out. Then there are all these gossip, rumor, this and that, and I don't believe it's ever good to directly go, we're hearing that the building is gonna shut down because of this or that, and that so-and-so's gonna get fired. Well, that's not true. No, you can't repeat the rumors. You just say, what is the facts? And that frustrates a lot of people because they want you to get down and dirty. Just like with the water registration, don't be stupid and sign up this way. You can't talk that way. You're the formal voice of the government. There's a certain integrity to how you put the message, and you always state things in a positive. You never, as a government, punch down or attack. Or there's a group of people passing a petition to force the council to give out all the money of the Salazar settlements, 100%ers, I think they call them. And they actually got enough votes to have the BIA hold a vote, having people vote on whether that should happen or not. I think council was angry, and I think at times they wanted to say, who do these people think they are, and the arrogance of them, and I am disgusted. You never saw that, because you don't punch down, you don't attack, you punch up to the president, or the Congress, or Department of Justice. You cannot walk that path of going that way. And all of my cousins would always stop me in the hallway and go, why don't you just, that is just not done. I would consider that an abuse of power, a misuse, and it's a temptation, and it could easily be done. But I would argue it should not be done. But I kind of babbled a lot. Does that give you a sense of? I got a more formal talk I do, but I want to try this approach. You have to ask any questions.
So, like, in your department, how many people actually work on the communications with you? Just you? Okay. And then, like, do you have to get approval before you could actually put something out from the council?
At the very least, I inform them, and what's great is if we ever do a press release, then I consider that topic fair game. I no longer need to go back to the chair and go, hey, that press release we put out on water, I was gonna cover those points in the press release. It's a topic that's fair game, so I don't have to. But I do keep very close to the chair on what's going out. So council is never surprised by what they see from me. Although sometimes I'm dealing with the chair, and we're on a quick timeline, and it goes out, and then people see it before the chair gets to them and says, hey, council, just so you know, I ordered Rob to blah, 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 blah. And so they're kind of like, what just happened? What is out there? When did we okay that? I thought did we agree upon that? That happens, and through the years, I think there's a trust and a comfort built in the system where they just kind of go, oh, I assume the chair was working with Rob on that. I knew that was coming, but they don't have that knee-jerk reaction anymore of like, oh my God, how did this happen? So, yeah, it's a pretty tight rein. And I think if you had somebody who you couldn't trust, because my first 5 years I was on a contract, which was odd for a tribal member to be under a contract.
Yeah.
And Joe Dupuy told me that, and we talked about it, and I said, well, I understand. I mean, there was no guarantee council would be like, this is a good job, and we like this here. They might have gone, I don't trust this guy. He's one burrito short of a combo plate, and so they could have, so I always had to prove worth in that position. And I think they found very quickly, this is important. On a larger discussion, I heard the tribal chairman of the Kumai, which is out by San Diego, California, very financially successful tribe, and they hired a very highly skilled communications team pretty early on, probably 10 years before we did, and they were putting out books and materials, and they said it very eloquently. They said the tribes in this country have done very well legally in winning key sovereign battles, asserting sovereignty, reestablishing lands and boundaries and proper roles as we get stronger and rebuild. And we are doing well. However, we have not told that story. And so the general public doesn't know of these victories of the law, of the way things are. They're still living in a incorrect reality where they haven't caught up to what is actually in place. And there's been a temptation not to share that story. And so then one by one, you encounter people who are like, what do you mean the tribes own the beds and banks of the lake? I don't believe in that. It doesn't matter if they believe that or not. It is the law of the land upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, and they have to deal with it. So it behooves a nation to educate. So they're making the point that tribes need to now embrace effective communication and education. And I do find that it's easy to confuse kind of this world of info, because there's education, there is media relation, and there's internal communication, which is very different than an external communication. If one department is not talking to another department, and there are misunderstandings, and that's a different kind of communication than I was trained in. That's almost tied to a cultural thing. It's almost tied to like your families. As a people running this government, we have had experts tell us we are bad communicators. I don't know if you've ever been to a meeting where 12 people are sitting around and you have a great talk and you go through a bunch of ideas, and then everybody goes their separate ways, and there's 12 different ideas as to what happened and who's going to do what. And they meet it next week and they go, okay, so Jim, did you finish that list that you're supposed to? I didn't know I was doing that. No, we said you were going to do. I know we talked about it, but no one said, Jim, you will do that. It was mentioned, but no one said that. If someone said that, I would have done it. Oh, well then did you do that? No, I didn't. She was going to do that. So it's like, oh, I thought we were going to. Council just went through that the other day. I sit there and I watch them and I'm like, they're not going to let me jump in. They're going to shoot the messenger if I jump in there and go, wait. They love to shoot the messenger. I was watching council get riled up on COVID, and the numbers are off the chart. And thank you for letting me know I have my mask on at the moment. And council is starting to get their hair on fire. We got to do something. And so they decided they were looking at some very serious actions and realized that's premature. We need to do some other building before we do that. So that included reaching out to school districts and counties. And so they asked Tribal Health to put together the most current information. And in the letter from Tribal Health to council, it said, Polson Schools is not helping with tracking COVID cases. They are refusing to give us people who are exposed, so we cannot track. And it makes it very difficult to, and so it didn't feel right. And my wife used to be on the school board there, and they got a brand new superintendent, and I'm in touch with an attorney / communication officer for the school district, which, it's a longer story, I think it's a bad mix. He doesn't really do a lot of communication. And so I sent it to the communication guy, Scott, that paragraph, and I go, Scott, this is being told to my leadership. Is it true? Is there more to the story? Is it more nuanced? And usually we talk a lot, and he wrote back and said, I'm gonna defer from responding to that and send it to the superintendent. He'll be back tomorrow. Okay, that was weird. We kind of have a relationship that way. And then 2 days go by, and the superintendent calls me and calls up with what I would call a assertive tone. Rob, Superintendent Cutter, understand you have some questions for the district? And I go, oh, yeah, explain who I am. I said, my leadership has been given reports in all the school districts, and it includes this, and I needed to know if there's more to the story on this, because I suspect there probably is. It seems a little too cut and dry that the district would be that difficult. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what it is. It's bullshit. That's what it is. And I can't believe it. If you're going to run around telling people this kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa. He's going full guns at me, and I'm like, wait a minute. Are you of the belief that I am accusing you of this and spreading rumor that the district is doing horrible things and I'm unfriendly that you need to neutralize and beat down? And he goes, well, what else can I think? I'm gonna call the county right now. They'll tell me the real truth. I'm like, well, the county is in daily conversation with the person who wrote this. And so, he's on full-on attack. He's shooting the messenger. And so he goes back to check with the county, and he writes back saying, actually, we do have inconsistencies in our reporting. We have one principal who's not cooperating with the county, and we have one who does half the time. And so he was fed a line of bull by his officers, and he stood by it. And in achieving that goal, he threw my name under the bus. And he said, Rob McDonald, Human Resource Manager for Tribes, is accusing the school district of blah, 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 blah. Please tell me what's really going on. I'm like, oh, you asshole. So all the principals wrote him a note explaining what is happening. And I shared that with our health officials, and our health officials went, that principal, right on the money, that principal, outright lie, that principal, half true, but kind of sucking up. And so I got a good feel on how they're operating. And the superintendent is brand new, and he has never had any exposure to any Indian tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Zero. And
Just to tell you a backstory, I played in the Shrine Game with him
Really?
summer of 1988. Went to school with him for a year in Dillon. He's from Phillipsburg. He's never dealt with tribes.
No, and the school district had one voice saying this is a concern and a problem, and was outvoted.
Mm-hmm.
There was a candidate who was from Mission, and she had tremendous tribal exposure, and they felt he was more dynamic. He's dynamic, he's just kind of an ass. So I'm
He's
hearing.
a punk.
I'm hearing.
I mean, he's my age, and I think he's a punk.
Yeah.
What does that tell you, Rob?
A special class of punk.
Yeah, I was just like, really, you're hiring this guy? That's what I said.
I'm hearing he doesn't listen to anybody on any topic, pretty much. We're over time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Final question? If you guys ever want a BS or?
Well, they have an assignment that they gotta do, based on your talk. It's a discussion question, so. These two take really good notes. They keep on top of their assignments.
I just had a quick question though, because I remember I went and talked with